And they continue to do so.
I think we have to figure out how to allow it, but then also how to limit the time in which it could happen.
All right, because this is the silliness that that reigns at times. You know, trying to figure out this where the accent goes in gravamen, but we're open and affirming of ducks, and they're welcome at the Lord's table because ducks eat bread. They do. They like it. Gravamina, 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 gravamina. So, and he was very clear, and that has become sort of a meme in the corner. So that's the.
They like it.
Ducks eat bread.
They do. They like it.
Hey there, welcome. This is a fringe encounter between me and one south of Sunrise. I'm going to give you some savings throws and then show you some things and then bring them on the stream and we'll do the talkie talk and for the first time, really, other than a couple coordinating Twitter DMs. Okay. No, you're supposed to click this. Which one? This one.
Imagine a world where boundaries blur between reality and fiction, with Mikhail Gorbachev leading the charge. Gorbachev didn't just challenge political norms, he dared to break the fourth wall in storytelling. "Tear down that fourth wall," he exclaimed, inviting us into a new era of engagement. His metaphorical call wasn't for Berlin alone. It was a clarion call to storytellers and audiences alike. Engage directly, break barriers, and foster a dialogue. Gorbachev's words echo in the halls of creativity. As storytellers, it's our turn to tear down that fourth wall, inspired by Gorbachev's daring challenge. Join us in this creative revolution. Tear down the walls that confine your stories. Share, like, and subscribe for more inspiration.
All right, Theandric Sophia, if that's what you want to be called now, Steve. Okay. We'll do a card pull, but this poor South of Sunrise guy is going to end up with this reputation of having, every time I go on that thing, I have to sit there behind the scenes for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. But first, we're going to do some savings throws, and I hope you know how those go. You get to choose between survival, social, wisdom, or heart as the basis for your savings throw. I roll the die. If the one you chose comes up over 10, you've made your savings throw and take half damage from the mind control. If it's under 10, you take full damage from the mind control. But remember, Embody, we want what's best for you, and you can get a +2 just by chatting in the hive mind over there. This is going to be a Fringe encounter, so I'll probably ignore most of that, unless somebody comes and stars your comments. If you have any questions, save it for when I tell you guys. Survival, social, wisdom, or heart. Choose. Alrighty then. Survivalist with a 5, a number 5 for you. Socialist coming in with a strong 18. 18 there. Look at that. Lovers of wisdom pairing it up with an 18. So much better than you did in the Joker's lair. What? Whoa, oh, heart, folks, with 1 for each chamber. You got a 4. You get a +5 for a replay comment, just so you know. And just like in the Joker's lair, the indigo child die gets seen because of one of the rare rolls of a nat 1 or a nat 20. The ass end of the beholder, nat 1 for the indigo kids. Welcome, Embody. There's the savings throws. There's the savings throws. Here's another branding, and then a card pull, and then finally, wow. And then finally, South of Sunrise's introduction. Which one? Have a good one.
Remember, Embody. I gotta get some of Grizz's branding in here.
We want what's best for you. Remember, there is no agency. And also, remember, Embody. Remember to embody.
You know, this vague accent that Grim has, you know, maybe he's been sent from Russia to America to colonize me personally. Maybe Grim Grizz is Putin's tool to get under my skin, and now that he's become my favorite YouTube channel, it's happening. Remember, Embody. Remember, Embody, we want what's best for you, and your body wants what's best for you.
Remember, Embody, there is no agency. We want what's best for you.
Trust the facts. Remember, Embody.
Don't have gratitude unless you remember, embody it. There is no agency. We want what's best for you. Please do.
Remember, Embody, we want what's best for you. The Remember, Embody, participation and virtually not alone. I mean, these are the things of Grizz's channel are really central to this. Grim Grizz channel. The heart of the Grim Grizz channel is virtually not alone. Remember, Embody, there is no agency. The heart of the Grim Grizz channel is about the question and anxiety of life being wasted in union with machines instead of other real human beings. That's the heart of your channel, Grizz. That's the heart of your channel. And it comes out of, very clearly, the pain that many people are growing up being parented by machines and not by their biological parents.
Can't leave that one on the screen too long there, Muffet. Can't leave that, but if people want to pause and grab it, it's worthwhile. Here's your card, Paul. Here's your card. King of Diamonds from the casino deck on today's stream. Fringe encounter with South of Sunrise. Who the hell is South of Sunrise? Well, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, what you need to know as far as that's concerned. Today, in my adventures, and that's, now you got to hit the back arrow. But speaking of card pulls, today on my adventures in X, we discovered that the Dirt Poor Robbins fella that's going to be here on Friday is soon to release a card deck by James Flames. So we'll be adding that to, look, you can distinguish which Joker is which and everything. That's very exciting. And that guy being here on Friday in the live stream is very exciting. But officially, what the story goes is this. Today in my adventures on X, I discovered by the guy I follow, Official Urban Anus, whatever his name is, that some guy is publishing a Defense Against the Dark Arts thing. And I say to my buddy Kale, this is the hazard of meme jacking, the competitive market. And then later on, Urban says, I have to hear more about this. And what do I do? But load up good old South of Sunrise here's video, Defense Against the Dark Arts. Specifically, the best part is this part.
We threw out the programmatic repetition and formation by memorization of our youth and gave it all to Set.
I'm Grim Grizz from the internet. So Set fits into the story of Osiris, Set, Horus, and Isis. And it's theoretically an encapsulation of what the Egyptians learned about government. And at some point, Set overthrows Osiris because the Osiris has become old and willfully blind. On some level, it maps to people getting their communal programming from at least everybody goes to church to at least everybody's watching the same 3 networks, right? So Set in our time became the television set, and pretty much every house has an altar to Set. And the fact that these 4 that was actually the topic of Richard Rowland's speech at the Symbolic World Summit. But look at this artwork, man. The man brings up the movie network. The movie network when he talks. That's a skill and an art that one like me can admire. Where's the damn thing? This one. You got way too many loaded, dude.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it.
Now, as far as I'm aware, his only other appearance in the corner being when he killed the Truly Strange show in its last apparently last episode, show number 5, where Christian Baxter made him wait 30 minutes before he got to give his interview.
Tell us about how long you've been paying attention to this stuff in this corner.
TLC, pretty for a while, I guess. I think Paul came on my radar probably early 2017. So okay. he had like maybe 900 subscribers.
For what it's worth, the three of spades jumped out of the blue church deck.
Yeah. And that was like the first moment where I realized other people that I was watching, he was watching. And he had appeared on some podcast with like a young kid that was super smart, and he's not really around anymore. But I was like, okay, cool. Like I could see the algorithm do its thing, and just kind of followed along as it's been going on. So it's been a cool journey, and I've always wanted to do, some sort of video. But it's just been, things move fast, and I was thinking, okay, do I go out and film stuff? Do I get like documentary stuff? And then something about the Kale and Paul talk felt like a good place to finally do it. And they had like a lot of good comments of like, oh, you should make this into a smaller video or something like that. Other people in the comments, and then Paul had made like a member video maybe later that week or maybe a week or two later. And he was kind of like, he just seemed like he was down in the dumps a little bit.
There's a section on the Discord called character clips where the last 10 seconds and the next 20 seconds probably should have went.
Like a period, maybe like 2 months ago, that he seemed kind of blue. And he kind of mentioned that, hey, if anyone wants to, take a crack at it, it was like a challenge. And so I kind of thought it'd be funny if I really took a crack at it.
Well, it was impressive. Like the quality is, so to that point, like what's your kind of experience with video?
But he's overcoming something rather than, a true marksman will look at the arrows available and say, if I want to hit the target, I'll pick the best arrow so that I can hit the target. A true marksman might say, all of these arrows are crap. This arrow is at least crappy in a way that I can work with. But he's overcoming something rather than, a true marksman will look at the arrows available and say, if I want to hit the target, I'll pick the best arrow so that I can hit the target. A true marksman might say, all of these arrows are crap. This arrow is at least crappy in a way that I can work with.
There was your opportunity for +4. And without further ado, oh no, wait, just a little bit more. The agency deck card of the show is the King of Clubs. And finally, wake up, Mr. South of Sunrise. The one so deep undercover in the blue state that your identity must remain confidential. We finally gotten to the point where we bring you on the stream. Only a mere 17 minutes as opposed to your previous experience.
Oh, I've got no problem waiting. I'm usually, browsing Twitter or something, so it's all good.
Let's make sure you didn't kill this stream like you did that poor show.
What's I guess there seems to be stuff going on in the dark arts, that tweet that you posted.
Oh, that particular article.
What's brewing?
The article that man wrote is in regard to actual historical, non-metaphorical dark arts, spells and psychic attacks and whatnot, and is more of a direct approach to the defense against the dark arts than what we're learning in our room of requirement. When you proposed this conversation, you said let's talk about set and sell.
Yeah.
I'd like to flesh that out some more. For those of you who missed the Christian Baxter interview, is there anything you'd like the people in the hive mind and or around to know about you or your agency?
I guess I'm a video editor. Been in the TLC area since like 2017, so I'm familiar with what's going on for the most part, but I'm not, too deep into the TLC to know every little. I can kind of pick up the drama every now and then a little bit, and I can go, oh, what happened? And so I have to kind of dig a little bit deeper to see what happened. But it's trying to kind of keep a certain distance where
you catch Paul like twice a week, maybe that kind of distance, or
no? I mean, in a weird way, I have such a habit when Paul has a video that I just kind of put it up, and whether or not I'm actually 100% paying attention all the time.
Giving it any attention, homeroom's in the background, right?
Yeah, and I think it's fun. I kind of go into certain waves of what the topics are going. Usually if there's like it seems like after an event, like the symbolic world, there's a little bit of an injection into the corner of things to talk about, or something happened and things kind of pick up. And I felt like my attention kind of will focus a little bit more of what's actually going on. And especially
when the events pulse up, like the one in September coming up, the estuary one.
Yeah. So how many people? I didn't know until maybe a week ago, I think on your show that was coming up. So is that getting sold out, or what's the story?
I'm sure it's going to. I mean, even if there's Rafe's people find out about it in time, we have a lot of special sub events that are more limited, like the lodging for 3 days for $100 at the campground with us. That lodging is only 25 seats. I think overall for the conference is only maybe 200, 250.
Okay.
So it's gonna be a fairly intimate event.
How big was how many people came to Chino?
Chino felt about 300 to 400. Yeah. But that might be high.
I was there. It was a good turnout. It was nice seeing everyone. I think I sort of met you, but I didn't really talk to you. So, but it's cool.
I wouldn't know.
No, you wouldn't know. No, you wouldn't know. But it is cool seeing some of the recognizable faces up in person and being like, oh yeah,
they are real.
Does it feel weird on your end since you are such a character, and then people kind of see you in the real life? And is it a little too much pressure to kind of be seen, or how's that feel on your end?
The weirdest ones, like every now and then somebody will come up and say something, and that's great. I mean, it's a little awkward or whatever, but it's great. What's weird is when you feel their eyeballs and you know they recognize you.
Yeah.
But they don't ever say anything, so you just feel them.
That was probably me.
But it's weird just because since it's also in Meat Space, the rest of the personality scripts that are associated with Meat Space are trying to run also, so that internal struggle to be both me's at the same time
It is kind of funny when you do meet people in person. I'm a little more extroverted, and it is funny when you want to kind of talk about some stuff, and then maybe they're a little like introverted, and you're like, okay, and you yourself have to learn to still try to meet people where they are, and then it's always a learning lesson to what I get out of TLC may not necessarily be what that person gets out of TLC. So if you're trying to kind of vomit on this stuff, it may be they may agree with 40%, and so it's that kind of touch of reality where people are actually circling around this thing, and because you find out that everyone's kind of different in a sense, but yet there is a commonality because we're all hanging out in the same area.
The hallway or Silk Road, maybe.
The hallway, the Silk Road. It is weird. The one thing about editing people, which is as an editor, you start to kind of get you feel like the people that you're editing in a certain extent, like editing Kale or Paul or you, and you do feel like you kind of create a connection. I've only probably 2 times in my life where I was actually editing something randomly, like a commercial or some sort of like Instagram thing, and it was actually a shaving product, and I was editing this thing for like a week or so, and then that weekend went to a bar with friends, and the bar back behind the bar was the model. And so he's like, hey, can I help you, bud? And I'm like, yes, but I'm glad that your neckline looks very, very nice. And so I wound up telling him that I was just editing him, and that was kind of a weird experience to kind of be like, oh, whoa, I was editing you for about 40 hours last week.
Yes, I've spent 40 hours looking at your neck, my good man.
It is a weird thing about interacting with a screen and video, and then really feeling like you kind of get to know someone, even though you don't know them, and they have no idea that you have a 40-hour head start on this meet and greet. It's interesting. It's definitely funny. But so yeah, I guess that's my long introduction.
All right. Well, we have the talking about set and cell going on, or well, I'll pitch you after. So let's do the discussion you wanted to have.
Yeah, I just want you to, kind of break down set and cell if we were at a bar and you were talking about it for the first time, because I feel like I've been kind of watching some of your podcast, your show, and some other people's show, and trying to kind of get into at least Christian space and strange theology space a little bit more, and just trying to kind of pick up what the lingo is or where you're coming from, and if it's changed over how you came to it, and then maybe has it changed over the last, I guess, few months or a year. How long has it been kind of brewing in your head?
Well,
cell.
It came in, well, cell you could kick later, but set came in when I experienced the Peterson classroom lectures, and he did that bit, which I pulled it from.
Yeah, that clip. I've seen that, yeah.
And that's the notion that the notion that mythology was a way of communicating across vast swaths of time, and what was being communicated was the nature of what happens with governments, and that's how the whole mythology applied, and that Osiris gets old and willfully blind, and the government will, and or whatever institution, the dominant people shaping institution will, and something else will take it over, and it seemed to me that basically what happened is everybody thought it was okay because it was on TV for a long time, at least before the cable diffusion. When it was 3 networks, the trust in government and media was insane, given what we know about them now. But
Yeah.
that became like that the mouthpiece. That see the way I've had it spelled out that makes the most sense that I stick to is War of the Worlds. And let's say what really happened in War of the Worlds, which you've probably heard. It was a radio show, and the people were so stupid that they thought the aliens were actually attacking. Let's say the people weren't that stupid, but they successfully sold you the notion that the people were that stupid. And that also started the age of the news anchor broadcast. And that the news anchor broadcast, the new anchor, it's an anchor for fuck's sake. Pay attention to what things are called. Sorry, that was more that wasn't directed at you.
No, it's fine.
But the news anchor would do the everything is terrible, but we have it under control in a very calm and reassuring voice. That
Right.
spell, and that spell held things together until cable news, at least we'll say. And that it was a spell, and that was set, and that was how he ruled the people. I don't know. It just because it seemed like that's how the people were being ruled, and from there, I went, what do we need to break the spell? And the Eye of Horus makes sense. The Isis calling out for the phallus of Osiris and creating it magically. That all seems to be what was happening, sort of. With it's silly for me to say what was happening in the corner, but from where I saw it in the corner, I saw it happening. So I'll say it like that.
And
Whatever.
what is that specifically? What is happening?
The calling out for the phallus of Osiris.
And what is the phallus of Osiris?
What happened was when Set killed Osiris, he broke him into 13 parts, and they gathered back all the parts but couldn't find it.
Gotcha.
That was the part they could not find, so it ended up being created magically. And interestingly enough, created magically through the news media was a terrorist organization called ISIS, which meant that that's symbolically when she was calling out for the phallus. And I think what we're building here might be the phallus that results in the Eye of Horus. Like that's the gist of the Beholder project notion I have is that it plays out as turns into the Eye of Horus at some point. But
And the Eye of Horus is a good thing or a bad thing?
yeah, that's like he ends up Osiris defeats Set and then gives one of his eyes back to Osiris rather than, and that so the Eye of Horus is the one that gets given back to Osiris.
Gotcha.
And restores justice and fair rule or whatever.
So did this all start from you watching that Peterson lecture, or did you already have a background information about like the whole Egyptian mythology and stuff like that?
Well, I've poked around and stuff. Like Thoth has always been an interesting character in my where my snitch has led me, as far as like back when YouTube was a conspiracy video place, and and the truther connections to Thoth rituals and sightings and whatnot. So,
and do you think that area really kind of blew up because of YouTube, like in 06 when YouTube, because that's when Loose Change and these 9/11 videos really start. I mean, that's the first time I saw Alex Jones and stuff like that.
Well, I assume that Alex Jones is one of the persons that is sent to what is known as muddying the waters.
Right.
You take the truth and have someone say it, but have the person that says it be the village idiot.
Right.
And so, are you going to believe what the village idiot says? And so I think that's what he does.
Yeah.
That he came into that. I think that was just a side effect of the development of media, the way it was.
Yeah.
Not that that was a special time otherwise. I think that's what made the time special, is the way that the transition from broadcast waves from cable to what we have now, that whole period of everything changing so rapidly.
Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting too with like, and I would assume that podcasting is kind of doing that again with everyone having, with Rogan kind of being a
it feels like podcasting has done that. There was this saying that haunted me um, uh, historically about the stock collapse, where historically people would jump out of it, the fall or whatever,
Yeah.
and it involved like some dude getting his shoes shined, and the shoe shiner talking to him about stocks or whatever that he was involved in, and that's him realizing that was. And it feels like that with podcasts now. It feels like so much of everyone has a podcast that it's suspicious that it's not done somehow and just waiting for the next thing. But
the next thing being the next vehicle of a show because that I think the interesting time that we're in right now is how everyone is essentially an audience and a host at the same time.
yeah, the whole everyone's a TV station now.
Everyone has a camera. Everyone is recording, and I'm actually
everyone's got this in their cell.
But even the editing, like everyone's an editor now too. That's essentially the next version of writing, is just kind of taking long bits of information, cutting them down, and spitting them out into, something that's sensationalized.
Given your skill set, that's actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
What I see is that the jobs that are jobs aren't recognized as jobs yet, and that is stuff like video editing. And given what you do, like tips and tricks as maybe a course for the people on the Discord would be greatly beneficial, because I see is the potential for the Discord that I see is like a hardware store where people learn the skills they need to communicate in this medium or play in this medium, and the different ways there are to play.
So do you think that right now so obviously, streams and stuff like that are gathering people of a certain spirit that can handle conversational, long-winded, never ending. We don't know how long this thing is going to be. And then the next level, what you're thinking is, okay, well, let's try to see if we can sharpen these blades, so to speak, and actually start to have clips or have montages or have something that can actually condense our ideas into something that's more shareable. And
well, there's the one level where we just have to capture our history.
I see.
Like on the Discord, that one's called the social memory complex, and it hasn't really thrived the way the Reaping Room has. But
what's the Reaping Room?
That's where people drop off the clips of the juicy bits of the thing they've seen that other people might not have.
Oh, okay. I might.
And I'm hoping Baxter and Strange Boy over there develop it together. They get their own, or they can use the clip stream for it actually. But the way that it's important, because the novelty, the innovation, as far as I'm able to detect it, is that we see each other and that we can make things for each other. Whereas like most people making things are making things for all of YouTube, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost like the audience that they're looking for is they're going to create something. They hope someone watches it. They may not even know what, because you hear this all the time of people making a video and then being surprised it went viral. And then all of a sudden, because they have an audience, they're self-conscious. They, how they're going to kind of create the next thing is going to change. Even I feel that a little bit, I
watched it happen without clicking on I clicked on one maybe. But I watched exactly what you're talking about happen on my algorithm page with the Chick-fil-A girl.
What's the Chick-fil-A? Oh, the one with the smile?
She branded herself. She acted stupid at the register and got viral off it, and then like tried to run it as a thing that she did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, she's marketing the meme, and then they're trying to make T-shirts and stuff like that. I mean, you have that. The most recent one is the Haktua girl just signed to the UTA, so she has an agent now. So, which is really funny, because it just goes to show, I think at the end of the day, is
we need agents. Well, an agency, and if we build one together, then we don't have to hire the existing corrupt ones.
True. Yeah. It's almost like this megazord of coming together and actually building up a bigger structure that on its separate, domains, they can do just fine, and then they can come together and actually bring the different, aspects of everyone's little channel into something bigger. I think the one thing that with like to me with Jones and like Rogan is it's amazing how much when you get popular or you get attention, people get really pissed off when you have too much attention. It is interesting how that works.
You haven't made it till you have a hater, honestly.
I guess so. Do you have a lot of haters or no?
No, I don't have. As far as I know, I don't have any. And the Discord is specifically a place for people who don't hate me. But maybe one day, maybe what I have made, I'm nearly surviving, thanks to the Shadow Cabal. So I've made it a long way it took me 5 years, but I've made it quite a long way. And it's nice to have people that believe in you.
It is nice. Because it also makes you feel like those instincts that you have with those curiosities. It is interesting how it is a two-player sport. You could have these ideas or instincts and then if you release them and someone goes, that's pretty cool. And you're like, oh, okay, it almost kind of sharpens you up a little bit. That's something that's being received. And you can't just put stuff out into the wind because you never know where you actually stand if you don't really put stuff out there.
Neutrinos, right? Voltroning is the
Voltroning, yeah,
is the official lexicon version of that.
That'll be that's the official term now, not megazording, Voltroning.
Megazording. Trying to filter Blue Church to me. Wow, that's a big bleep.
So is your term of Blue Church? Is that a Mencius Moblug term? Blue Church.
I think I'm stealing it. If my characterization of it is inaccurate, then I'm stealing it.
That's fine because Red Pill, that's exactly what happened to Red Pill. I mean, he kind of started it and now it's taken on its whole other form. But what is Blue Church in?
Well, you know how the regular church is supposed to believe in Jesus.
Yes.
The Blue Church believes in the narrative.
Like progress.
Like, no, the hum. Everything is terrible and we have it under control.
Right.
That narrative is their truth. If you disagree with what the television says, then so the Blue Church is the Set as far as it's the
dominant narrative.
It's the Church of Set, but
gotcha.
And what's the reality is defined by the narrative.
Right.
So,
have you ever seen? They did a remake of The Manchurian Candidate with Denzel Washington was in it.
I'm triggered. Because I've been itching for like all day to bring up how much when they put Zartan in the White House in that G.I. Joe movie, how much that dude looks like Biden. But anyway, okay, sorry.
I now have to go watch the G.I. Joe movie again. I haven't seen that in forever. In the Manchurian Candidate remake, the poster probably has one of the best, taglines, and it just is everything is under control.
Everything is under control, and
it's like, man, does that thing do the amount of weight that thing is carrying? It's like everything is fine, no, but everything is under control, and it's like, man, that's like such a great. And the remake is actually a really. I had watched it during the pandemic, and it's really good. It gets and then watching it, and then with the background of reading Tom O'Neill's Chaos book, it's like, man, there's another.
What is this Chaos book? Who? Say the name again.
Tom O'Neill was
Pablo
wrote a book called Chaos, basically the history of Charles Manson and MK Ultra, and he kind of blew. Rogan had him on the show. That blew up. It kind of was perfect because Once Upon a Time in Hollywood had come out, and then that book had come out right before it. So there was this really weird focus on like Laurel Canyon and San Francisco and the West Coast around that time. And for some reason, I find myself keep coming back to the sort of MK Ultra kind of stuff because it seems like there's such a undercurrent. When you watch like the movie like Forrest Gump, which condenses all of the.
Oh, have you seen the meme of him doing the Baphomet hands?
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, what's funny about Forrest Gump is it's kind of funny because it's a very, very condensed version and kind of wholesome look at the last few decades from the 60s, the 50s to the 90s.
An apple pie view of American history.
But it has those, Time magazine, Life magazine sort of moments. And what's so funny about it is then you kind of read stuff on MK Ultra, which is tough because the more you read into the stuff, the harder it is not to you kind of, the more you kind of go, get out of here, you're kind of entering into the crazy world, and you realize there's actually two currents going on. There's like what is being seen and what's being delivered and what's being photographed, and the undercurrent underneath it. And I'm not saying that like, oh, MK Ultra, this is everything is connected, because I think that's actually, you have to be very careful with connecting things that look similar. But the aspect of it is there, and it's just so funny how it's not even a normal thing that people know of. And I think that is more interesting, that these things are so widespread and so impactful, and there's plenty of victims and this and that. And if you just read up on MK Ultra, if you want to have any type of hesitancy on sort of science and trust the experts, it's MK Ultra. It's like, this is what happens.
That ended in the 70s, SOS. Which
MK Ultra.
What I'm calling
Well,
it.
that's what they say. Yeah, but I'm just saying is that the interesting aspect of using universities and having all this different type of CIA money come about, and having sort of professors kind of do their experiments, and then in secret, and then they run amok, and then they have this sort of debris, and then they cover it up, and then who they influence.
How much of the layer cake people have been exposed to, and the fact that everyone is born naive and intentionally, well, previously until this generation, censored from the dangerous shit, at least until they're 14. It's not surprising, the lack of awareness. Like, I mean, you'll get it. There's a level where people know about both Uncle Ted and MK Ultra, but not that those two are connected.
Yeah.
You know, but I found it fascinating that you said that you mentioned Laurel Canyon. Oh, and then we had the 10 of clubs, by the way, from the Shenandoah deck. And that there's going to be things that look like that aren't that. And I've been playing with the notion to what extent we can be a Laurel Canyon. You do it without like the same
without the psychedelics, and like, because Laurel Canyon was basically just musicians coming together, but then all of a sudden you had LSD and other outside forces coming.
Oh, you think Laurel Canyon was just musicians coming together?
No, I don't. I mean, I think
the version in which that we are them is not one which necessarily involves LSD, but more about the way that like a group that comes up together can like go out into their own fields and broadly influence society itself.
Yeah, no, I mean that would be ideal.
That's sort of what the general hopes to. It's as if he's a general trying to accomplish some aim.
So thinking about aim, what your ultimate aim is to kind of pull the veil away?
My ultimate aim is for civic responsibility to be associated with default manhood. Like the sin and hypocrisy of me not going to the city council meeting and not knowing who my representative is in the state governments, much less the federal ones. The differentiation between my zone of influence and everybody's zone of influence and where their attention goes, the divide between agency and attention, and where the attention is being spent. I don't want to be a real boy one day.
Yeah.
But,
and does that mean sort of attributes, physical attributes, or abilities to navigate like, it's, if all this stuff turned off, could you operate in the world if there was a solar flare that nuked?
Oh no, it's not the survival die. It's not the survival die I'm talking about.
So what's the what am I missing?
One where my conscience doesn't wake up angry.
Yeah.
That I guess is the best way to say it. You know,
do you feel like
failures I acknowledge in like what I think every man should do, and what the gulf between that and my own behavior?
Do you feel like the anger or the frustration, is it 100% you, or is it 50% being the algorithms or the things that were in trying to poke at that also?
I don't. It's not coming through as anger for me.
Well, yeah, I think because I know like there's obviously like I have frustrations, and especially when things get put out there, and you know that's not actually what happened, or you know that they're using word games, or there's clever editing, and there's just like someone's going to consume
Well,
that
like we
and
never
be
stood a chance,
right.
right? And
Right.
I could be angry about that.
Right.
Like none of us ever stood a chance, and we can blame our parents, but they never stood a chance either.
Right.
Like the revelation of the method, like they hit it in both the Jack Nicholson Batman and also the Incredible Shrinking Woman decades before, right?
What's that mean? The revelation of the method. What does that mean?
It's the thing where they get more points if they tell you they're doing it and they do it
Yes.
anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the official name for it for some reason, but I like to think of it more as the points thing. It makes more sense to me in the PvP server thing. It's like ignorance is not an excuse, and especially if they tell you, So
Do you think there is an actual awareness of them, whatever them are,
whatever them are the people that
or up top?
it's. I think everybody's got a heart, and their heart always makes love. And I think one can reciprocally narrow it onto oneself, or one can spread it broadly outward, expand it, bloom it, if you will. And those that reciprocally narrow it onto themselves get to the point where hurting others is irrelevant to the love I have of myself, and that's who they tend to be. On the plus side, they can be gotten to, and like if a heart that's been all bunched and corrupt and focused on itself forever, if you tap it and it pops open, it's like fucking beautiful. But
Yeah.
that's who I think they are.
Yeah, I'm thinking about when you were talking about War of the Worlds and that being a radio era of
Right at
things.
the transition point, really, when television started its implementation was right after that. So.
Yeah, so I guess TV was probably late 40s, early 50s when that really got deployed.
It didn't. The damage beautifully encapsulated in the first season of F is for Family, a cartoon, but you could search it.
Yeah, I think you just broke up on my end. So if you could just say the last.
Is there any connection issue?
There was a connection issue for like the last.
I saw myself circle.
Yeah, okay. I missed you for about 10 seconds right before you said F is for Family.
Well, you caught the reference. That's all it was built up.
Okay.
It's good about it. Documents the rise of set.
Gotcha. Oh, interesting.
Real well. In a way, people can see it real well.
Did you ever watch the Cable Guy, the movie?
Yeah, just once a long time ago. But the social impact of that one was obvious.
It's pretty incredible because there's a scene in that movie where, the mother's leaving and Jim Character's little child self is watching the TV. And at the end of the movie, they're kind of having this little fight on a massive satellite. And he talks about, you can play Mortal Kombat with kids in Vietnam. And I remember watching when I was a kid. I was like, that would be amazing. It is interesting to see the interaction of how I have to remind myself of how wide open the world was, like probably 15 years ago. And now people around the world kind of pop open a chat and they're learning to speak English, they're learning to speak Russian or whatever, and they're just kind of talking. So something about that is actually nice. There's actually something that's interesting there where you're having people thousands and thousands of miles
It's
away.
like a natural normalization.
Yeah.
Right? But because it lets you see how much more everybody's basically the same schmo.
It's the same. The one thing that scared me a little bit is years ago, this girl that I knew, she is not American, but she was comes from like the Netherlands, and she sounded like an American, and had went to university in the States and was very much like hyper, like, you know, what we're seeing today in that sort of progressive realm. And I'm like, wow, there's no distinct, like, I don't know where I can't. And she was educated in Hong Kong. She was very international, but her international
Global citizen.
self, yeah. And what's funny is this was probably back in 2017, actually. And so back then, you start to realize like there's a top layer of these people that are going to university or going to be on NGOs, or, you know, get out to like that rah voting and stuff like that, where they're basically in Hollywood and all that type of stuff too. It's a little bit of a dream version, but even people who are abroad, they sound like Americans, and that they're not even distinct American. It's not like, oh, this is a Pittsburgh sounding.
Well, they sound like the urban monoculture.
Yes, which is exactly what it is, and that's kind of interesting how now there's an American globalist layer that is forming, where everyone sounds the same, or they consume the same thing, and that's why if you hear, there's YouTube videos of people going up in the streets in, like, you know, England or France, and they're like, what's your thought about Americans, and what's your thought about Trump? And they're all exactly the same, and they're basically, it's a cosmopolitan attitude also. It's all these city people who sound the exact same thing. Obviously they have accents and stuff like that, but it's amazing how similar they all have the same exact ideas about something. So it is the American media machine that's the one thing that China, in terms of superpower, does not have at the United States, is a entertainment.
Well, they don't have the illusion that theirs isn't run by the state.
They don't have the entertainment soft power that the United States has, where the idea that Taylor Swift, you know, is, and I think there could be something that was leaked out or unredacted years ago about how, you know, you hear stories of how the CIA was buying up Jackson Pollock paintings in order to kind of, you know, pump up that art to kind of stifle Russian art at the time, and then also maybe launder money. But the idea of having Taylor Swift be the number 1 song in all these different countries, so that no local culture could really reach their number 1 there. I'm not saying it's really done by design. I just think it's probably the spirit that is what an empire or what a media does. It just, okay, here you go. This is going to be popular. And then it, you know, because everyone listens to it, it just gains more power. Like, I have no idea why Taylor Swift somehow reached another level last summer. I know she was always popular, but last summer seemed very, very like Michael Jackson type of level of fandom.
Well, man, my favorite is that she's the clone of LaVey's daughter, who did TV in the 80s.
LaVey's daughter. Who's LaVey's daughter?
Anton LaVey, famous guy, I think.
I know the name, but I can't place the face. I've heard
it
of
might not be him. Maybe I'm getting the name wrong. I know it's not Vincent Price, but there's the guy.
Oh, yeah.
He was like MI5 and also famous Satanist.
Okay.
And like his daughter, what used to go on TV in the 80s, you can find clips of her. And she's supposed to be who the Taylor Swift is the clone of. And that's my favorite. So,
interesting.
At my level, she's so deep in the Five Eyes involvement that of course it's astroturfing.
You're saying Five Eyes, like the intelligence Five Eyes, or
yeah, like they've agreed to
share intelligence.
Differentiate. They all did a different experiment in COVID lockdown harshness together. Like, yes. Australia got it real rough. Canada got it pretty damn rough. We got it not so rough.
New Zealand,
like the five there, yeah. Those Five Eyes.
It is interesting as like a testing ground where these sort of Anglosphere-ish countries get to use each, because Canada, it's interesting how much Canada is in the news these days, where Canada was basically non-existent in the news in the 90s and 2000s.
Poor Canada, man. I can't help but feel bad for how bad it's getting up there.
But it is interesting to see that as that's happening, we have Peugeot, Vervaeke, and Peterson.
Like squeeze them and like
squeezing them out. Well, it is interesting how if some people gets put.
Two of those came out of the Toronto factory. Don't forget.
That's true. And Peugeot is the Quebec.
I'm sure Peugeot has plenty of guilt by association. He's given talks in Jupiter, so I mean, But that's like a level that there's people at our level have no point in talking about. It's interesting to know,
Yeah.
but
Only we can talk about that, because if I referenced any of that to anyone outside of this, they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Which
right,
is really interesting that we are actually having this conversation. That
that's why I
is,
talk about it the way I do, in like just ways that if you know, you know, and if you
yeah,
don't know what the Grimm's talking about.
yeah,
It's like a shield against, because like if you talk about it too much, the people it's see that I think is where free will plays in, right? At a level beyond conscious comprehension. If you're not open to a thing, you're not going to accidentally come across it.
yes, yeah. And a culture that grows will have its own words and things and inside jokes that people will be able to enter into or also acknowledge or get. And that's interesting too. I think that's probably a challenge. The next challenge, I think it's part of your project, in a sense of getting, condensing videos of the TLC so that they are somewhat consumable, so that if there are people who are passing through, can actually stop and go, "Oh, what's this?" Because I
Well,
do think that because I got into this space in 2017, right in the very beginning, I have a leg up on anyone else that's, the next chapter of things, because I know where the conversation has been kind of going for a while now. And I'm still, there's things I get lost in. I have to kind of catch up, or, what happened. But okay, I do
but if
feel
you can
like,
see where they stopped, if you can see the adventuring party journal, if you remember, see that's we do a lot of navel gazing, but not enough recursion, right?
mm,
Um, like just one video going over as the friendship developed between Paul and Viveki, and that
mm,
as a, because there's this angle where I see it as people participating. There's a lot of people who participate by watching an ensemble TV show that's spread across multiple channels,
yeah,
but and they do crossovers and stuff. And for those people, the the compilation collages of moments like the relationships between those guys developing is the great stuff that they'll remember from, and so to crystallize it into an actual video would be a great thing. We lose too many of the good moments. We It's like a conversation. We have a conversation that walks us across the stream where we're stepping on those stones, and we're not keeping track of the stones we step on, so we
yeah.
can't help anybody who hasn't started crossing the river at all.
It's a good point. Yeah, I think because I remember at Chino, to me, what was a great moment was when Vervaeke and Paul are talking, and Vervaeke kind of has this sort of, "Oh my God, Paul, that's right, that's right," and it was like, "Wait a
Yeah,
minute,
Paul's like, don't you think that's what we're
what are we
doing
doing?"
right now,
I
Bob?
I started laughing. I was like, "Yeah, we're trying to come together in order to kind of articulate, a way out of this sort of mess, because we know that, we know there's a better sense making, a better way of actually processing what's, around you, and realizing, oh, wait a minute, that's actually not nutritional. This stuff is way more nutritional, and getting better diets and how we actually go through this world and consumption. Because I think,
No humans prior to us have had to deal with this level of information about the world,
yeah,
right? And so the fact that we have to come together to learn to process it is nothing we should be ashamed of. And that,
no, I think it's actually the probably the role that we need to play is, I think McLuhan. That's why I need to do a deeper dive into McLuhan, but it's incredible. When I was editing your section of the video, and I was pulling McLuhan, there's a longer documentary. I'll send it your way. And there's in the documentary, there's like when McLuhan's book came out about the medium and the message, or I think it's called maybe it's called the Gutenberg Galaxy.
is that the official name of it, and why everybody knows it as something else?
Well, he had books leading up to that, I guess. There's always like the one book that they're working on, and then eventually they get to the real bigger guy. But they have his detractors, which is so funny because it sounds exactly what's kind of happening now. It was very similar to like Peterson, how he released a book and people were going like, I don't really know, this is really not that great. I don't know, and it's so crazy that this is in the 60s when they're filming it. I think it's like 1964, and it's so spot on today. And that piece, that one section with Set, is how we're going back into the tribal world, wide awake, and that collision of the hot and cold and the warm mediums of and you touched upon it in the video about that dream state, and kind of walking through in a sort of haze where we're just kind of watching videos and getting our quick kick and then moving on, and then all of a sudden realizing that an hour blew by and you have to get back to work. You have to wonder if there's other iterations of that. I mean, we can detect that's happening because of TikTok and Instagram, and I wonder if there's an iceberg of that we didn't realize. And there probably is, which is just TV and stuff like that. But because it's so...
It started with 15-minute increments, right?
But McLuhan, he talks about it in his documentary. He says, things move so fast... Go ahead. Things move so fast now that we actually can detect the patterns at a faster rate, whereas before things moved so slow that normal people couldn't see what was happening. Think about it. I mean, if there was a war going on, the idea that he talks about the global village, that we're going to be leading up into a point where every little thing has a level of gossip that demands our attention, that we need to know. And you see this with Israel and Palestine. It's an event, and you have to have an opinion on it. And and you can see how when these things do happen, how much the movement or whatever is happening is demanding your attention for this thing. And you have to have an opinion on it, or you need to know you have to become a historian about these things immediately. And it's like what happened in 1930 if you're a farmer and something 1936 and Germany invades Poland, and you're like, okay, like, why do I care? And then that's why, in a weird way, it's like the United States was like, what, 80%? Like, they did not want to go into World War II. They were like, we did World War One, we didn't want to do it, and we're not going to go back. And then next thing you know, Pearl Harbor, and you have this massive will to save Europe, which apparently there's a book somewhere, or I remember seeing a tweet that they really had, even during the World War II, they had a hard time of getting soldier morale to be up to that point. I mean, you see it in Saving Private Ryan and movies today.
Are you saying with the global communication web, it's going to be even harder to make us want to kill each other?
I don't say it would be harder, but I'm saying that I think the retconning of what actually happened and what we're told happened is interesting. I'm finding myself where you're told, there's this myth or heroic thing, but then you find out that the people on the ground are like, no, this place sucks out here. And you're like, oh, I was told that you guys were like, you wanted to kind of really save these guys. And it makes more sense, because whenever you hear a human emotion of like, no, why would we want to go over there? It's like, oh yeah, duh, why would you want to go over there? Like, what guy is going like, when my grandfather fought in World War II, he was the firstborn American, and he volunteered. And okay, but at that point, because everyone was going, just like Taylor Swift, because more people are doing it, then you were compelled to do it. But it is interesting to see where these reports of like the military having a hard time trying to get the soldiers to be amped about fighting. And yet, after they win, that makes better sense of being like, yeah, we were glad that we did it, and blah blah blah. It's just it's a conflict of narratives. I think it's just interesting about the ground level, just like a soldier on the battlefield and the general reporting back to the president. Those are two different narratives at play. He's going to say it's a disaster up here, and the general's going to be like, we're doing fine. It's a little rough, and the president announces to the citizens like, we're kicking ass and we're taking names. And it's just like during the Bush years, where you constantly hear, the media report one thing, soldiers come back, and then, okay, we have to kind of keep kicking the can down the road that we're actually doing good, but people can detect it's not doing well. And I think there is a stress there. Eventually, that narrative does fall apart. Like when 9/11 happened, there was plenty of capital to be used in order to kind of expand. And then that capital eventually, after 3 years, in about probably 2006, that's when the tide turned. where the media wasn't on George Bush's side per se, and then they started to question everything and just swamp what you were seeing with "we got to get out of here." But what compels the media to kind of get on board with that?
Who's directing that?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a direction, but I just think it's because the Trade Center was such a cinematic type of visual of seeing those explosions go off and it collapse. That that was the highest point of probably Americans coming together in my memory. I don't think it'll ever happen again of people kind of coming together.
Disaster always brings us together. Hopefully, it'll never happen again.
Well, the thing is, that's what I think a lot of people were hoping with COVID. A lot of people were hoping that when this thing was happening, that everyone would kind of join up. And in a weird sense, it's probably good that people didn't join up because they wanted people to kind of join up. But I think people detected that this COVID thing wasn't a 9/11 thing. This is not what we think it is. And then you have the detractors.
I'm not going to say any of this on YouTube. So
that's fine.
We'll stop there.
But it is interesting how we disseminate information, how people kind of get along with the program. And I think now that we're podcasting, we're back into this oral tradition. And, with Martin Shaw, I think he's so spot on about storytelling. For me, as an editor and a screenwriter, I'm like, I need to get really you're trying to learn how to write a movie, but you should really learn how to tell a story like over a campfire.
Right?
That to me is the pinnacle of all things. It has to be. It has to be.
Well, you've ended with the pinnacle of all things, but I was busy setting up so I could run this here. And
I share, and you talk back, and I want to see God's glory. Leave a comment.
So let's see if anybody's got any quick questions or whatnot, and if not, we'll end this encountering of the Fringe. It's nice to see someone who sees who sees the things at a similar level to myself. It's good to have that layer of communication with someone. I appreciate it.
No, nice.
Anybody got anything in the hive mind over there? Parlato, Anselmans. Here, I'll run some branding while you type the thing you got. Here, do this one.
What makes you assume that I'm not about to feed you all to the crocodile? What makes you assume that I'm not about to feed you all to the crocodile? What makes you assume that I'm not about to feed you all to the crocodile?
That's very exciting.
Hello. I see the assassins have failed.
Are you doing anything else for the TLC? What's the next output you can do? You got 2 interviews and you appeared on 2 channels off of 1 video. Do you expect to ride the video anymore, or are you going to make some more work?
That's it. That's the only video I'm going to do. No. Right now I'm in like a little bit of that's why I'm talking to you. I'm in a little bit of a R&D right now, research and development. And there's things that are, I'm not sure if I want to talk too specific, but
you are going to play again.
I'm sorry?
You are going to play again.
Yeah. I think the next video, it's not, like I said, I'm reading up on some stuff. I'm trying to poke around to what I should do next. And right now in the back of my mind is kind of the idea of exploring the edge and the margin.
I've recently decided that like this is a Fringe encounter, that I might launch a series called the Hem Encounters, which interestingly enough, hem means like something double back. It's very
that's actually really interesting. That's actually it'd be kind of interesting to have the Fringe encounter, which is okay. Everything is kind of okay, a little goofy, nutty, whatever. But the hemming is actually like, it's almost like. Okay, before practice, you can kind of you're going wild and the coach blows the whistle and you have to like, all right, stand at attention. Maybe they have something that's a little more formal or, introduces ritual or something like that people have to follow, gets them in shape. But yeah, I think the next project is trying to kind of think. I've been dabbling into some of the UFO stuff, some of the lore. I'm trying to figure out what is going on in this moment, and not in the sense of from an outsider's point of view, like, okay, on the deep end, but very similar to downstream of what Diana Pasulko's doing with American Cosmic and Encounters, where she's seeing it as like a religion. But I kind of like how Pajot explains it with the center and periphery, and if you get to the margin, that's when you start seeing the monsters. And I want to contain that somehow. So I think that may be the next thing. So, and
Well,
it may
if
be
that
different,
doesn't work
hopefully.
out.
Yes.
If that doesn't work out, sooner or later, Vervaeke's going to drop his Hermes talk with Paul. So if the inspiration hasn't struck on the other thing.
Well, that's going to be a different one. Like, honestly, if that talk goes well, because, Kale and Paul was basically them talking, and I can use that as the main structure. So if the Hermes talk comes out, because I don't know, I know a little bit about what was going on with Vervaeke and Hermes. Again, I don't know too much. So I'll
He
have
came
to
out on Peterson as talking to Hermes in his IFS session. It's very traumatic.
So, and he says Hermes is basically his muse, essentially.
That there's a entity communicating that is with him that's not him,
right?
And hopefully Paul got to the bottom of it. We'll see. We have some questions for you. I want to get to.
Sure.
Oh look, Baxter donated and ups. Remember, thanks for ups. Thanks for up. Maxwell Bliss asks you, do you have the book recommendations?
Do I have book recommendations? Trying to think. I guess so if you're doing anything UFO wise or anything a little weird, I would say The Lore of the Edge is a good survey book of all stuff that's been going on in UFO world up until 2001. American Cosmic is a pretty good book in terms of getting to know what's going on with all the weird stuff. I'm trying to think of what else to kind of I like.
That's 2 book recommendations you've delivered for Maxwell. He can donate if he wants more than that.
Read Chaos by Tom O'Neill if you like MK Ultra stuff.
Oh, the Chaos book we recommended earlier. There's 3, Max. I hope you're happy. Mills says, does he listen to Slayer?
I do not.
Have you heard of Slayer?
Yes,
I've heard with what it is.
I've heard of Slayer.
They did an album called South of Heaven. You remind me of because of your name choice.
Oh, I'll have to listen to it now.
What is your name? No, it's terrible. What's your name choice? Where did that come from?
My name?
Is that did Baxter get that answer out of you?
I'm not. No, I don't think he did. No.
All right. Well, what? Yeah. Where does South of Sunrise come from? What's behind that mimetic choice?
There's nothing too deep about it. It's just more of it's a place where I grew up. I'll say that.
I thought it was going to be a Darkest Before the Dawn angle. Nice.
Nope.
Nice.
Nope. It's actually it's a kind of a physical area.
We have have you found reading the epistles strikes you very differently now as opposed to when? I don't know. This is unclear. It seems to be some kind of background between you and Occupy Mike. But have you read the epistles, and is that different for you now?
Have I read the epistles? I haven't even read the Bible yet.
Oh, look at that. Who the heck do you even think you're talking to, Mike? Let's get to Peter Penrosebach with what makes you feel warm and fuzzy.
Anything lately, like normal core.
Normal core.
So I would say there's a comedian named Joe Pera, and he has this show that got canceled recently called Joe Pera like walks with you or talks with you, and it's just like filming in this sort of Minnesota house, and it's just basically like going to the grocery store, but it's just like something about that show is actually a little bit of an opening from everything else because it's such a little Americana, and it reminds me of like going over to my buddy's friend's house where the mom had her cigarette tray, and you just felt like it was lived in. So that's the kind of stuff.
Normal core, nice.
That's what I'm calling it. But I feel like at least with my story ideas, I feel like I'm Joe Pera, and that sort of ability of it could be more grounded in sort of places that are not like opulent or architecturally this or that, but just kind of basically suburban homes and stuff like that are actually warm and fuzzy to me.
Suburban home, like, you know what, like Halloween, or like the build up to Halloween, coming home to apple pie or pumpkin pie baking. And anyway, we have rhubarb pie if you're a VIP. I got 2 more questions for you, then we're going to take the train on out of here. First, from Stephanie Christos. What gives you hope?
What gives me hope? That we're going to win. I think that's what gives me hope is that it's very easy to be, everything is kind of falling apart. And I think in years past growing up, there's been incidents where you felt like the world was kind of going to fall apart, and it didn't. So I think the idea of being around other people kind of finding themselves is what gives me hope.
Nice. Now, I said 2, you're getting 3. Here's number 2. What's your favorite D&D class?
I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, so I
So
flirted with it.
You're not allowed. You still don't have to have a favorite class.
Yeah. So unless
Just
someone
say wizard next time, pal. Just
okay,
say
wizard.
next time, pal. And from our good friend, getting the extra 3rd question, Upcycle with what video editing software do you use?
I use Premiere Pro.
Premiere Pro. Who do you pay?
Adobe's.
What company do you have to pay for that?
I think I pay like a monthly subscription. I think there's a smaller subscription. I think there's like a thing called like Adobe Rush or Premiere Rush.
Oh, Adobe. You're working with Adobe. All right, we got to go, everybody. He's working with Adobe. But we're going anyway. Thanks for this. It was good times. Sauce. We can call you Sauce. Where's the
Sauce?
Train? What's a rhubarb? This hive mind's great.